There are sounds in music that are just unmistakable. The soaring voice of Freddie Mercury, the earth-shaking drumming of John Bonham, and the singing, searing, soul-drenched tone of a guitar in the hands of Carlos Santana. For over 50 years, that sound has been a bridge between rock and blues, Latin fire and jazz cool, the real world and the spiritual cosmos. It's a voice that speaks a universal language of passion, rhythm, and melody. So, how does one man create a sound so singular, yet so complex? How can one guitar cry with the blues, dance with the joy of a salsa club, and explore psychedelic space, all in a few bars? The answer isn't a piece of gear or a secret scale. It lies in the souls of other musicians. Santana has often said that the greatest players don't just play notes. They channel something deeper. They're conduits for a higher power. For decades, we've known the what, the iconic songs, the legendary shows, the unmistakable tone. But the why is a tapestry woven from the masters who came before him. Now at 78, a living legend himself, Carlos Santana is opening up about his own guitar pantheon. He's revealing the 6 guitarists who weren't just influences, but architects of his sound. These aren't just names on a list. They are the spiritual guides, the technical wizards, and the emotional anchors who showed him a guitar could be more than wood and wire. They showed him it could be a key to the universe. It's one thing to be influenced by your heroes. It's another to have your hero, the guy rewriting the rulebook for your instrument, in real time turn to you and validate your entire existence. Imagine being a young Carlos Santana, still finding your way and coming face to face with the man turning the guitar world upside down. That man, Jimi Hendrix, didn't just shake his hand. He looked him in the eye and said, "Great choice of notes, man." For Santana, that wasn't just a compliment. It was a coronation. And it's right here, with the ultimate innovator, that our journey into the heart of Santana's sound begins. To really get why Hendrix was such a big deal for Santana, you have to picture the mid-1960s. The electric guitar was still young. It had pioneers and stars, sure, but no one had treated it like a vessel for cosmic exploration. No one had turned feedback, distortion, and raw volume into a language of pure expression. And then there was Jimi. Santana, like the rest of the world, witnessed this paradigm shift. He talks about Hendrix not just as a musician, but with the reverence you'd say for a prophet. Jimi didn't just play the guitar. Santana has said he transformed it into something else entirely. It was like he was painting with sound. This wasn't about playing blues licks faster or louder. This was channeling something otherworldly. Santana recognized that Hendrix was tapping into a different level of consciousness, a galactic creativity that was light years beyond what most musicians were doing. The real connection point was the legendary Monterey Pop Festival in 1967. There, still relatively unknown, Santana saw the Hendrix experience in its full, fiery glory. To see Hendrix on stage coaxing, wrestling, and finally communing with his instrument, ending with the iconic guitar burning ritual, was more than a performance. It was a revelation. It showed Santana that the guitar wasn't just a tool for music. It was a conduit for spiritual energy, a way to touch the divine. Hendrix was living proof that the instrument could be a bridge to the cosmos. Their personal interactions were brief but powerful. Santana remembers meeting Hendrix in San Francisco and feeling an immediate connection, a deep, familial bond. The most cherished memory is that simple compliment, "I love your choice of notes," coming from Hendrix, a man famous for sonic fireworks. A comment about choice of notes was huge. It validated Santana's own philosophy, that melody and phrasing, what you say with the notes, not just how many, was everything. Hendrix's influence on Santana isn't about copying licks. It's much deeper. It's about a fearless spirit of exploration. When you hear Santana push a note into soaring, controlled feedback until it blossoms into a symphony of overtones, you're hearing the lesson he learned from Hendrix. The guitar can be a spiritual instrument. Santana compared Hendrix to improvisational titans like John Coltrane and Charlie Parker, musicians who could play incredibly fast and incredibly deep. As he stated in a Hall of Fame speech, "Every time I plug in my guitar, I'm honoring what Jimi started." For Carlos Santana, Jimi Hendrix wasn't just the first name on his list. He was the one who blew the definition of a guitarist wide open. If Jimi Hendrix was the untamed, cosmic potential of the guitar, the next master on Santana's list is the complete opposite: sublime, sophisticated, and pure elegance. This is the jazz titan, Wes Montgomery. To understand his influence is to understand the soul of melody and the power of restraint. Two cornerstones of Santana's iconic voice. Santana discovered Wes Montgomery in the mid-60s while playing hooky from school at a friend's house. They had 3 records: the Beatles' SGT, Peppers, Jimi Hendrix's Bold as Love, and an album by Wes Montgomery. While Hendrix was the revolution, Montgomery's sound floored him with its sheer class. "I remember the sound of Wes Montgomery," Santana recalled. "It just sounded so evolved with class and elegance. It was a sound beyond genre. It wasn't even jazz anymore," he explained. "It was just universally accepted music." What really grabbed the young Santana was Montgomery's revolutionary technique. First, he used his thumb instead of a pick, creating a warm, round, smooth tone you just can't get any other way. But the real magic was what he did with that thumb. Montgomery was the master of octave playing, hitting 2 notes an octave apart to create a sound that was lush, rich, and clear all at once. For Santana, hearing this was a light bulb moment. "Wes showed me that the guitar could be an orchestra," Carlos reportedly told Downbeat magazine. "Beyond the technique, it was Montgomery's economy of notes that left the deepest mark." Neil Shan, who later played in Santana's band, recalled how Carlos would listen to Montgomery's albums for hours, telling friends, "Listen to how he makes every note count. There's no waste, no ego, just pure musical conversation." In a world of guitarists obsessed with speed, Montgomery taught Santana that one perfect note is more powerful than 1,000 empty ones. When Wes Montgomery died suddenly in 1968, Santana felt the loss personally. "It felt like someone in my family had left," he said, recalling how he felt frozen in time. His first instinct was to go buy more of his albums. "I love driving around the streets of San Francisco playing Wes Montgomery's music," Santana remembered. "He just makes the day better. He fills my life with gladness and gratitude." His notes. Wes Montgomery's influence on Santana is both subtle and profound. Think of the lyrical, singing quality of Samba Petit or the melodic perfection of Europa. Those aren't solos built on shredding. They're built on the principle that every note has a purpose, a lesson learned directly from the school of Wes. Santana has said, "When I play a long sustained note, I'm channeling what Wes taught me about making each note sacred." For Carlos, Wes Montgomery proved that virtuosity's highest purpose is to touch the human soul, a philosophy that would define his entire career. If Hendrix opened the door to the cosmos, and Wes Montgomery provided the blueprint for elegance, it was the undisputed king of the blues, B.B. King, who gave Carlos Santana his emotional foundation. Before the fusion, before the Latin rhythms, Santana was a student of the blues. And in that school, B.B. King was the headmaster, like so many others, including Eric Clapton and Michael Bloomfield. Santana considers himself a disciple of B.B. King. Santana's first encounter with King's music was a live, life-altering experience. At the Fillmore West in 1967, he described that night as a profound awakening. "The moment B.B. played his first note, I understood that the guitar wasn't just an instrument," Santana recounted. "It was a voice for everything you couldn't say with words." He watched King's famous guitar, Lucille, cry, laugh, preach, and pray, all at the same time. At the heart of B.B.'s magic were his vibrato and his phrasing. King's vibrato was a slow, deliberate, butterfly-like shake of the string that made a single note sing with incredible passion. For Santana, this was a revelation. He learned that a note's true power isn't just in its attack, but in how you nurture it and make it breathe. The other key was King's mastery of space. BB was famous for his belief that the silence between the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. This philosophy directly shaped Santana's most famous trait, his long, sustained vocal-like notes. While many credit his gear for that sustain, the impulse comes from his hands and heart and approach, born from B.B. King's school of thought. Over the years, their relationship grew into one of deep mutual respect. Santana has proudly worked with all three, Blues, Kings, B.B., Albert, and Freddie. There's a treasured story of King telling Santana backstage, "You took what I do and made it speak Spanish. It's beautiful, brother." It was a profound validation from the master himself. An acknowledgement that Carlos had successfully fused his blues lessons with his own Latin heritage. Following King's passing in 2015, Santana's tribute was deeply spiritual. He told Time his one-of-a-kind sound was an inspiration to an entire generation of musicians, including myself. He saw King not just as a musician, but as a spiritual figure, placing him on the other side with Bob Marley, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and many others. For Carlos Santana, B.B. King is the source, the fundamental truth that all technical skill is meaningless unless it serves human connection. We've journeyed from the cosmic explorations of Hendrix to the sophisticated grace of Wes Montgomery and the raw soul of B.B. King. These first three pillars already paint a vivid picture of Santana's musical DNA. If you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as we are, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss the next three guitarists, including the psychedelic pioneer who shared a profound, almost mystical connection with Carlos at Woodstock. In the vibrant experimental music scene of 1960s San Francisco, two bands stood as pillars of innovation: Santana and the Grateful Dead. At the helm of the Dead was Jerry Garcia, a guitarist whose playing was all about improvisational freedom. For Carlos Santana, Garcia wasn't just a peer or a friend. He was the son of the Grateful Dead, a source of warmth, light, and boundless musical exploration. Their relationship was forged in the creative soup of the San Francisco scene, but their most legendary connection is immortalized in the lore of Woodstock in 1969. It was Garcia who, shortly before Santana's set, gave him what was likely mescaline. Santana, thinking he had hours to go, accepted only to be told he had to go on stage right now. What followed was one of the most iconic performances in rock history, tripping heavily. Santana stepped on stage and delivered a scintillating set, later recalling he felt his guitar neck transform into a snake. He famously prayed, "God, please help me stay in time and in tune." Looking back, Santana sees it not as a misadventure, but as a spiritual lesson facilitated by Garcia. He described their experimentation as taking therapeutic inner baths, peeling layers of illusions to connect with a deeper energy. Musically, Garcia's influence was about a shared philosophy of improvisation. Garcia was a master of the long, exploratory jam, weaving intricate lines from folk, bluegrass, and psychedelia. He showed that a guitar solo could be a long, unfolding story, not just a short, explosive statement. This resonated with Santana's own instincts, while Santana's music was more rhythmically anchored in Latin grooves. He shared Garcia's love for letting the music breathe and find its own path. What Santana admired in Garcia was his ability to lead a collective musical consciousness. The Grateful Dead was a living organism, and Garcia was its heart. This reinforced Santana's own belief in the band as a unit, where the goal is to create a collective energy, not just showcase individual skill. Garcia represented the freedom of the San Francisco sound, the idea that music had no rules and that a performance was a unique moment in time. He was a kindred spirit who, like Santana, saw music as a spiritual and communal experience. In the constellation of Santana's heroes, Jerry Garcia shines as the star of improvisational freedom. A reminder to always play from the heart. Before Carlos Santana was a household name. He was a young guitarist in San Francisco, hungry for the blues. And in the mid-60s, the man to see was Michael Bloomfield. As the lead guitarist for the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Bloomfield was electrifying the blues, injecting it with a raw energy and staggering virtuosity. For Santana, Bloomfield wasn't just an influence.
No.
He was a direct mentor who helped open the door to his career. Santana's life literally changed the first time he saw the Butterfield Blues Band. He became obsessed with Bloomfield's phrasing, and his own band started playing their songs. While he could hear B.B. King and Bloomfield's playing, he also heard something wild and untamed. He sounded like he took some LSD or something, because his music all of a sudden sounded like a hamster that just came out of the cage. Santana vividly described the Butterfield Blues Band's 1966 album. East West was a landmark recording for Santana. The long Rog-influenced title track was groundbreaking, proving you could take a blues foundation and expand it into something new and worldly. That album, East West, was extremely important, Santana stated, saying he listened to it over and over and over. Their personal connection was forged at a legendary Fillmore jam session. As the story goes, Santana, still an unknown, saw Bloomfield's guitar sitting on the stage. A friend urged promoter Bill Graham to let him play. Graham deferred to Bloomfield, who looked at the young Santana, then at his prized guitar, and simply said, "Go ahead, man, that's my guitar." Santana got on stage and played his heart out. That single act of generosity and the performance that followed got him a gig at the Fillmore, effectively launching his career. Bloomfield served as a direct mentor, not with formal lessons, but by example. Santana absorbed Bloomfield's aggressive attack and fiery tone. His first appearance on a major record was even on the 1968 album The Live Adventures of Mike Bloomfield and Al Kooper. In the story of Carlos Santana, Michael Bloomfield is the generous master who opened the first and most important door. He was the bridge between the traditional blues he loved and the psychedelic future he was destined to create. He didn't just show Santana what was possible, he handed him his own guitar and gave him the chance to prove it. Our final journey into Santana's sonic soul takes us to the crossroads of jazz and Eastern European folk. Guided by a Hungarian guitarist whose music Santana called fantastic spellbinding. This is Gabor Szabo. It's perhaps the least known name on this list, but one of the most crucial to the Santana sound. Santana discovered Szabo in the mid-Ebi Joshalu Ling S. when he was trying to move beyond his primary influence. B.B. King Szabo, who fled Hungary in 1956, had a unique style that fused modern jazz with the exotic scales of his folk heritage. He used feedback and percussive techniques that were highly unconventional for jazz. Santana was captivated. "To me, Gabor was a very, very elegant gypsy guitarist," he said. Szabo showed him that music didn't have to fit into a box. It could be free, boundless. The most undeniable proof of Szabo's influence is in one of Santana's most famous recordings. His 1970 smash hit is a medley, a cover of Peter Green's Black Magic Woman, fused with an instrumental outro. That outro is a song called Gypsy Queen, written and recorded by Gabor Szabo for his 1966 album Spellbinder. Santana's version is a direct driving tribute, but Szabo's impact goes deeper. His fearless blending of genres, covering pop songs like Jefferson Airplanes, White Rabbit, with his unique jazz folk sensibility, gave Santana the blueprint for his own alchemy. Santana wanted to combine the feeling of B.B. King with the rhythm of Latin percussionists like Tito Puente and Mongo Santamaria, and Szabo showed him how. Decades later, Santana even recorded a tribute song, Mr. Szabo, on his 2012 album Shapeshifter. For Carlos Santana, Gabor Szabo represents fearless musical exploration. He was the artist who proved that authenticity comes from weaving all your influences into a sound that is uniquely your own. He was the elegant gypsy who provided the final, exotic ingredient in the magical brew that became the Santana sound. 6 guitarists, 6 distinct voices, 6 streams of inspiration flowing into a single mighty river. As we trace the path back through the architects of Carlos Santana's sound, a remarkable picture emerges. It's a portrait of a master alchemist. He took the cosmic fire of Jimi Hendrix, who showed him the guitar could be a bridge to the divine. He absorbed the sublime elegance of Wes Montgomery, who taught him that every single note is sacred. From the undisputed king, B.B. King, he inherited the very soul of his playing, the expressive power of a single crying note. In his friend and psychedelic peer, Jerry Garcia, he found a kindred spirit of improvisational freedom, confirming that music is a journey without a map. From his fiery mentor, Mike Bloomfield, he received the initial spark of high-energy blues rock and a career-launching vote of confidence. And from the spellbinding Hungarian gypsy Gabor Szabo, he learned to fuse it all with exotic rhythms and melodies, creating a sound that was truly global. The true genius of Carlos Santana is that he doesn't sound like any of these masters. He sounds only like himself. He filtered these powerful influences through his own unique spirit, his Mexican heritage, and his profound spirituality. He took the blues from B.B. King and, as the king himself said, taught it to speak Spanish. He took the jazz of Montgomery and infused it with the percussive energy of the street. He took the psychedelic exploration of Hendrix and Garcia and anchored it with the rhythms of Africa and Latin America. The result is a sound that's instantly recognizable, yet impossible to categorize. It's spiritual, sensual, and deeply human. At 78, Carlos Santana is more than a guitar player. He is a living library of musical history and a shining example of how true artistry is born from the synthesis of everything that moves your soul. He heard the voices of his heroes, and in learning their language, he discovered his own.